like to call to order this meeting, Oconee County Planning Commission. It's 6 p.m. Monday, October the 7th, 2019. Our first order of business is invocation. Ms. Lyles.
Dear Lord, we come to you today just thanking you for this day, Lord. Thank you for the cooler weather, and we just ask that you be with us through this meeting. Just let us conduct it in a way that would take care of our citizens of our county, Lord, and that we would be respectful of each other, Lord. And we just ask that you bring us some much-needed rain. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Mr. Adam, will you with us in pledge, please?
Sure. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, sir. Public comment, non-agenda items, Mr. Barnett.
I'm Jerry Barnett. For the record, I live, eat, and breathe agriculture. I live on the farm where I grew up, under a Brian Swisher of Jersey cow. When you get something right, you need to know it. Y'all did a little thing at the last meeting that pleased me and a lot of other people. We saw the rustic ripoff disappear. That was put on us at the same time that we were robbed of our county seal by royal decree. Mr. Blackwell, Mr. Mulder, and Mr. Stevens were the individuals involved in that. They didn't want to follow due process and give the people a voice and whether to give up their seal or not, so they just put it on us. We're still stuck with the seal, but I'd like to thank you for getting rid of the rustic ripoff. The agricultural element of the comprehensive plan, it disturbs me greatly that these people that care so much for agriculture would completely ignore the Right to Farm Act and the right to farm. You know, in the past it's been hidden from somebody, from a lot of rural landowners that weren't aware of the Right to Farm Act in order to push zoning on them. And the strange notion that zoning protects somebody, which it does not. It just robs you of your rights. That's it. But in time, I guess these things are going to take care of themselves. But and I'm understanding that Oconee is the only county in the state that has a so-called Ag Advisory Board. And I'm looking at the makeup of this Ag Advisory Board, and it in itself is disturbing. It does not fairly represent the rural community or our agriculture itself. Do we see special interest and cronyism come into play? But over time, I guess these things will clean themselves up, just like the rustic ripoff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Barnett. Okay, our next order of business is the approval of minutes from the 9/16/2019 meeting. Do I hear a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to accept. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any corrections, spelling errors?
Yes, we all look.
Okay, if none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you guys. All right, now we're gonna open public hearing related to road renaming on Oakville Drive. Mr. Chapman, you wanna explain?
Certainly. So as per the state, the planning commission is responsible for any number of tasks. One of them is road renaming. I don't know if you all recall, but about a year ago now, you all did some updates to the road naming policy. It was some stuff that our 911 addressing thought that needed to be updated over the course of time. Road naming falls under the purview of the planning commission. As per the policy of the county, the planning commission's policy for road renaming, if 100% of if somebody wants to rename a road, everyone along the road, if they all agree to road renaming, the planning director can administratively change the name. We may change the name. However, that may also be, may not. So that's why I also kind of left this in here. But what's going on is on O'Shea Drive, there's a group of the property owners who wants to rename the road from O'Shea Drive to 2 different road names. That map is not populated for some reason here. But one is Lake Pathway, one is a continuation of another road. Just forgive me for a moment to get this back up here. But the way this is a hearing, so we're changing something from one thing to another. Pardon me for one moment. That's what. So this is a hearing. So the way that it should work, and I kind of left a hearing procedure on your desk there, is that I'll give you all a rundown of what's going on here, which is what I'm doing now. The applicant or their agent can speak for their proposal. Then any citizen who wants to speak for or against can come up, and then the applicant can come back up again to refute or talk about whatever else needs to be talked about. At that point, you all can ask them any questions you want to. We only have the applicant here. There's no other members no one else assigned up to speak, I don't believe, sir. So that's the general policy. And the 2 motions that need to be made since this road renaming, if you also choose, well, actually 2 renamings, is on this hearing procedure sheet. There you go.
Okay, at this point, we will get the applicant or agent up to explain his reasoning.
Good evening. How's everyone tonight? We recently purchased actually several tracks.
Pardon me, sir, if you would just state your name for the record.
Brett Carton, 465 O'Shea. We recently purchased several tracks in the Whitewater Lake area, and we purchased it from I can't even think, from the probate through the O'Shea family. So the kids basically sold it to us. And in the process, we talked about changing the name of some of the neighbors we were just talking to, and we're all for it. They wanted something that better reflected the community and the neighborhood. So that's the reason for the name change from O'Shea to Lake Path Walk. Okay, because O'Shea does take you down to the lake. And the house is number 9. She approached me, she's my neighbor, I'm in 10 and 11. She approached me and she said, well, have you thought about doing South Shore? And I never thought about South Shore as an extension of what's already existing there. So I asked if I could, and they said yes, it made sense to go ahead and do that. And it was basically approved to do South Shore, then also to change O'Shea to the Lake Path Walk. So that's really what the gist of it is Mr. O'Shea has passed away. The neighbors overwhelmingly, all but one, voted for it and wanted a name change. We tried contacting the Fullers 3 separate times. They never responded. I'm not sure what their situation is, but they never responded yay or nay, but everyone else was definitely in favor of it. We even got the entity out of London who owns a huge tract of that lake and the lake that's behind it. They even responded and wanted the name changed. So they thought it better reflected the community and what they're going to be doing down the road. So that's really the gist of it.
this point, since we have no other people here, I'm gonna open the floor up to the planning commission. And if y'all have any questions for the gentleman, ask them at this time, and then we can go from that point.
I actually have a question for staff. Am I correct that I understand that we are talking about what is identified as track 4 on the map here?
Yes, sir.
And am I correct in that somebody has applied for a build permit on that track?
I'm not 100% certain, but I know that people have been in contact regarding that, that property. Do you have any-
The map that's up there right now has changed. The O'Sheills, they had a surveyor go back out. They had a surveyor split those lots in different sections. Because we actually own a lot more, we own something different than what's on that map. So, Lot 4 the name has changed. The property's been sold, and there's a new owner to that property who I contacted. So that new owner was contacted. Everyone the O'Sheills basically sold everything they owned in the last, I think it probably ended in May sometime. But over the course of about 6 to 8 months, they just blew out of everything. So everyone that's on this list is the current owner of property out there.
And which property owner was it that didn't, sorry,
Well, I'm trying to, I want to see if I have
It looks
that
like it's
map.
the one you're talking
Can
about.
you give me a minute,
Fuller,
please?
The Fullers.
Can you give me a minute? Let me grab my time.
How did you determine that, Mike?
She's not on the list.
I pulled all the names of all the deeds.
I'm looking at the, oh, you have some secret way of doing?
Just county record stuff.
Oh, okay, all right.
And I forget the young lady's name that I worked with in 911.
Simmerling?
Lisa said it.
Lisa.
Lisa, and she was wonderful, very helpful, gave a lot of direction. And she went ahead and verified everything that I had. I hate to say it, but what's currently showing and what's currently on the assessor side is not reflective of what has transpired in 2019. That property, for the most part, is probably split into, well, all the tracks that are on this piece of paper.
So 4 is different in a different layout, but it is owner number 4,
Yes.
regardless of the size of the track, that you all were not able to get a response from.
To answer your question, the person who's building number 4 is on this list. It's not Fuller, it's not the Fullers. Can you do me a favor? Can you pull up tax map number 053? I'm not sure how else to do this. And the thing is, it's still going to be the county assessor site. The county assessor site's not updated to reflect what has taken place there in the last.
So if I may, so Ms. Barnes is correct, the assessor site works a year behind. So if you subdivide today, we get stacks of these plats, and it approximately takes about a year in arrears to get it populated on the map though. I think the question is, all the property owners though are current, right?
Yes.
So as long as all the property owners are current, but if the map isn't, if our official county map doesn't show that at this moment in time, but all the property owners were contacted.
Yes.
Current property owner list was contacted. Yeah, I don't think you have a way to
Yeah.
present a factual map to us.
The hard part is 4 has basically been split into 2 parcels. And 4 isn't reflective of the Fullers, it's reflective of the people who recently purchased it earlier this year. And they purchased it for the reason to build a house on it.
And are they named here?
Yes, and I was trying to figure out which one it is, because it changed a couple times during the process.
The reason I'm going down this path, just so everybody knows, is I want to find out, is there a cost or expense that this owner might incur in changing the name as they are in the process of pulling permits?
Well, the applicants will pay
The sign.
Sign fee, the sign change name.
But as far as permits, applications for the build, things like that, will there be costs that they would now have to re-pull as a result of the name change that they haven't responded?
The one that's gonna build on the new track on number 4, what is it? They've already pulled a permit under O'Shea Drive, or they're gonna have to go and pull another permit under the new name and pay another fee.
So from a county perspective, I don't believe so, but I can't speak for water or power or natural gas or homeowner association or any other entity. I'm fairly confident from a county perspective that it won't change. Just change the name and address should not impact their fee schedule. Well, I can only speak for.
For the county side.
For the county
And that was all I was wondering, is for the county side.
I do know that there's 3 people, all who purchased the property this year, who've already submitted for septic tank approval. I wish we had the correct map, and I'm embarrassed that I don't have it with me. No, I have the old.
And
I
what
still
owner
have
was
the
it
old
that you were not able to reach?
The only people I was not able to reach were the Fullers.
Which is 4.
Your number 4, Anthony Fuller,
It's no longer belongs to number 4 to them, so.
what they sold it for.
Fullers were the only ones that I could see that did not have a signature on something. But it would also mean that if it was subdivided and there's a new owner, then I didn't see their name in here either.
Does it take 100% of the people to approve this, or can we?
We can approve it without that.
With 75%, it can be. What we have as owners along that road, I sent a letter to every owner along that road, as well as our legal ad, to get any feedback. And it was also advertised in the newspaper. So you're saying there's an additional owner who's not represented on any of these lists, Mr. Martin?
I'm looking at it we actually own a few other tracks other than what's 6 and 7, we own the ones below it. I know it changed, and I'm trying to figure out if that's the one that we wrote to. I mean, that's the most updated one. Because number 5, I'm True South, I'm number 5, 6, 7, and then 10 and 11 is through a different entity I own. Then 9 and then 8. Yeah, and I apologize, that is accurate. That is accurate.
Okay,
I apologize.
I've just got one question. Why are y'all wanting the little green space to be named South Shore when, at least from this map, it looks like it's actually a continuation of O'Shea Drive, and South Shore comes into that? Why are y'all wanting to change that little section?
The way it started out is we were just going to change O'Shea Drive. That street name was the name we wanted to change. Our next door neighbor at Lot 9, who just pulled building permits and are starting to build, asked if we would change it to South Shore to be consistent. Her mother owns the property next door, and those two came over and we were talking, and they asked if we could just change to South Shore instead. It didn't really matter to me.
There was a stop sign at the end of O'Shea Drive there.
It's a rolling stop sign. So, but I honestly don't think there's a stop sign there, but, obviously there should be, but it's not a big deal. But number 9 and the mother who lives right next to her, who is on South Shore, and actually the gentleman next to him, then Michael, they all suggest we change it to South Shore just for consistency purposes.
Is there a
because they're
stop
all
sign on
underwater.
any of those at that corner?
Only
down
at
there?
O'Shea and Whitewater. There's no stop signs there. That area of that community is a dirt road. It's a gravel road. It's a country road, basically. If you look at the green portion, I'm sorry, if you look at the green portion where the X is, that's end of county maintenance. And I only, I'm at number 10, 11, and number 7.
And I just have one more question.
Sure.
I think, and I've not been down there, and I apologize, but which is the more natural transition? Is it O'Sheill Drive that continues into the green section, or is it South Shore that continues into the green section as the natural drive or natural element?
If there was a stop sign at the end of O'Sheill Drive, then it would be South Shore.
It would look normal.
It would
that's
look more normal
continued.
to be South
Okay.
Shore.
Than it would to
It
be
it
O'Sheill.
really would, yes.
Okay.
It does make more sense in honesty to change it to South Shore. That wasn't my desire, but our neighbors asked if we would do that, and I'm fine with it. I just wanted to get something that's more reflective of the community than O'Sheill.
I have a question.
Yeah.
It looks like the Neals sold to Rawlings. Is that the
The-
sale that you were trying to figure
Yes.
out?
No,
May of 2019?
that was the one, and actually, we started way back then, and I didn't know that they had sold it until.
There's a note down at the bottom of the one that the Neals sold,
Mhm.
that was sold to Susan Rawlings,
And that's correct.
which is track number,
That's number 9.
how many of these tracks have houses on them now?
Number 10,
Okay.
that's it. Anything that you see that's going to be impacted by O'Sheill, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, even 9 doesn't have a house on it, really just 10 does. And 11 is property we own, and we're having the double wide pulled off of it.
And you're 10?
I'm 10 and 11.
Okay, because I was just wondering about, if it's somebody that's been there for years, the massive amount of changes they would have to do with people
I
that
agree
send
with
them
you,
mail.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I do know that number 4, number 6, and number 9 have all submitted for septic tank approval. So my assumption is they're getting ready to build their houses. And then also number 3, it's 5 cousins who purchased the property, and I talked to them, and they wanted a place where their families can just go and have fun. And I'm not quite sure where they are in the process, but I do know that they've already cut roads in and they're doing all that now.
Okay.
And I've talked to each one of the individuals out there about this.
The only other question I had was, O'Sheill, was that a prominent member that this name was land because, land was named because of them, or only because they own the land?
Only because they own the land. Only because they own the land. They owned up basically really all the numbers up there you see reflective, they basically own. Or did own, they sold them all. They no longer own anything in that community.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
The map shows, it looks like a proposed road between 4 and 6 and intersecting or bisecting Lot 1. Is that going to happen? How are you going to name that? Or is that just a...
This was a community that probably came about in the 80s when a lot of development was going on. They cut in roads. This is the best community to hike in because you have all these roads that really are about the size of a 4 to 6 foot section out to walk. Those roads probably will never be cut in. I
So they-
can't see it ever taking
they-
place.
We're gonna build a subdivision or something here, and it just
And it
never
went
happened?
defunct. That's the London, part of it is the London entity. I guess the landowners of number 1, I think they own like 100 acres there. And they signed off on it. They asked for the road change. So, but at one point, I'd say it's probably back in the 80s when the building heyday was going on and everything was being master planned. This community those roads will never be developed. The road right here where 10 and 11 is, you would have to literally be a billy goat. It's straight down and straight up. You could never build that road. Obviously you can build it, but the cost to build it would be so steep you never would. Plus it crosses a little creek, so, that's gonna be a major issue too. And it doesn't serve, if the other properties are completely serviced by Red Oak Drive, so there's no need to cut that road in. But this was a master plan community probably 40 years ago that went defunct.
I thought I didn't have any more questions. I do have one other question.
The one landowner that you hadn't been able to contact, how long have you been trying to contact this
I
landowner?
contacted him 3 separate times. Most people, I'd say probably half the people I just contacted once, you know, the neighbors and stuff, they're real easy, we all talk.
I'm talking time frame.
Number 3, this started back in May. I want to say probably mid to end of May. Because one of my notes, I'm not sure if it's in here, the letter that was sent out asked everyone to please provide back, I want to say by May 31st. So to answer your question, it was sent out sometime in May. And I followed up probably about every 4 to 6 weeks.
And there's just been no response.
No response whatsoever. I was thinking about calling them. I thought, I don't want to badger them. It's not my place. If they haven't responded, they haven't responded. And I've never seen them out there. No one knows who they are. So,
One last question. I
Yes,
don't
sir.
see anything identified on here, but I am assuming that there is no family reported cemetery.
no. None that I'm aware of at all. If it was, it'd be on 10 or 11. Because that's where their homestead was. That's where they had 2 homes.
What
And
was,
7's where they had their barns.
what were you about to say, Adam?
Oh, so if I may, so the state leaves the local jurisdictions up to managing cemeteries essentially. I mean, there's DHEC, like health and safety stuff. But as far as placement, management, and whatnot goes, it's up to local entity, which is us. We don't have anything related to cemetery. So, don't necessarily have to be planned out here, although I believe DHEC does recommend that they.
Well, and we see a lot in a lot of the subdivisions in and around the area, little bitty 10 by 10 plats taken out of a survey that say family cemetery or something. That's why I was just wanting to make sure that there wasn't anything like that in here recorded.
So one more thing, if I may, so we can circle back here, because we had kind of broad conversation. The map is accurate.
Yes, and I apologize.
Also, during your application, you mentioned Lake Path Walk. The name that was applied for was Lake Path Way.
Yes.
So Lake Path Way. So this map is correct and it's representing of what
Yes.
you're requesting as well as the map. Okay, just wanted to put that on.
Somebody make a motion.
Pathway?
Yeah, it was, and I had walk on here, but I think it was Lake Pathway. If you looked at most of the people who responded, they didn't circle anything. They just said whatever you guys want. You know, so, well, I guess a lot of them did. But some of them just didn't. They said, just circle whatever you want. It doesn't matter to us. I think Michael did and the 5 cousins did. Everyone else, it didn't really matter. They just wanted the name change.
Well, can I make a motion here and see if we can make a motion to change the name of the portion of O'Shea Drive as indicated on the map provided to Lake Path Way, 3 separate words.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Opposed?
Let me make another motion. A motion to change the name of the portion of O'Shea Drive as indicated on the map provided to a continuation of South Shore Drive, 3 separate words.
Second that.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? All right.
Thank you.
Just one
Good
final
council.
thing.
Have a great evening.
No, not this.
Thank you. And I apologize for saying that wasn't
Adam, how much, is there a fee related to this kind of activity? This is a very optional activity, and I know that the county employees spent a great deal of time relative to that. Is there any fee charged by the county, other than the signs?
In the policy statement, it does say that the council may council may make a fee. However, I couldn't find a fee for road name changing in our current budget, and that's set annually with the fee schedule. I spoke with Lisa Simmering, who's been here almost a decade, who is an 911 addressing person, road naming person, and she believes this is the first time that it's gone this far. Either 100% of people have all agreed to it, or just not happened. So this is the first time this is. To answer your question, no, sir. There is not a sense.
It's not appropriate for us to make that recommendation that the county council review, make some kind of a review for a fee schedule for this.
I mean, you all certainly welcome to make whatever recommendations you all want to.
Let's do that next year.
Yeah, perhaps during the budget time, or if you want to
Okay.
put on the clock for when the budget, and I'll let y'all know, the budgeting generally starts after the first of the year. But yeah, that fee schedule all goes through council, although you all, of course, are welcome to make any recommendations you all see fit.
How many name changes do you see in a year?
This is the first one that, we get applications for new roads probably daily, or at least weekly. But changing an existing road name, I believe that's not unanimous. I believe this is, to our knowledge, the first one, in at least a decade.
Well, it's certainly the first one since I've been on county, on the planning commission.
Okay.
I'd suggest that, the fee, in case somebody else wants to do one, let's don't worry about it till we start getting a lot of them.
Okay, let's move into item number 7, comprehensive plan discussion. Mr. Barnett, do you still want to speak?
Yeah.
Along the same lines, again, my name is Jerry Barnett, and I grew up under a Jersey cow in a little grade A dairy barn. Land use. Whose land is it? This is the biggie. What country is this? This great country was founded on the principle of private property rights by an agrarian society. And I suggest the point of almost demanding that the right to farm be included in your land use element also. Because do you really want to give the vital resource of agriculture the political kiss of death? If it dies of its own accord, so be it, because I've seen a lot of it go by the wayside. When I was growing up, the egg production in this county was big, huge. 60-some odd grade A dairies, 67 or 8 grade A dairies. Possibly 100 or more grade C producers that set 8-gallon cans of milk out on the side of the road in the summertime, put it in a tub of water to keep it from spoiling. All that went to Coble and Anderson for making ice cream. Virtually all of the little grade A dairies produced milk for Oconee Dairies. Mr. Marshall Parker was the owner. They bottled the milk for Oconee County schools. All that's gone. You know, I think we've got 2 legitimate grade A dairies that, you know, when the current owners retire, I guess they'll be gone. Also, the countryside at one time, when I was a little boy, it was cotton from border to border to border. Cotton. Biggest part of those cotton fields, if you look up in these pine thickets, they're terraced. Some of them are gone to pasture land. So I've seen a lot of changes. Our markets are a moving target. supply and demand of different commodities and products, it changes. When my granddaddy was extension agent, the first extension agent in Oconee County, he encouraged the people at Long Creek to plant apples. It grew. It was huge at one time. Now look at it. You know, some of these things are no longer competitive. There are a number of reasons. Older family members die, the younger generation doesn't want to carry on. But my main concern here is you start intruding into the personal and private lives of the rural community and meddling with private property rights. You'll certainly give the agricultural community the kiss of death. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Markovich?
Good evening, y'all. For the record, I am Tom Markovich. I'm speaking primarily to the land use element, although I have a couple of little excerpts about the agricultural thing that came up in the past 2 weeks when I wasn't here. But it all ties together. I thought it was interesting the way that whoever devised the existing land use numbers and the future land use numbers. We have what appears to be one set of data to explain the land use that's existing, and then all of a sudden it becomes a different type of data when we're using the future land use. It's a little bit like Common Core math. It really doesn't add up, okay? You don't have any mechanism to make measurable use of that data when all of a sudden one data set becomes a whole new data set and it doesn't correlate. I mean, you actually have 3 different mechanisms in here for residential uses in the existing land use part, and then you go to the future land use part, and all of a sudden now it's just residential, but it actually decreases in the amount of acreage that's being used. It makes no sense, okay? Now, I understand what happened to it. I understand how the data got rearranged, but I'm just saying, if you're gonna use data in tables, it needs to be consistent. This is not. I also wanted to talk about, because this kind of points to it, in the agricultural piece, we talk about threats to prime agricultural land. Many threats the farmers face. There's no question. There was a report this morning about the number of small farms that are disappearing nationwide. This is not new. It's been happening for a very, very long time. Mechanization has a lot to do with it. But probably the biggest thing the small farmer faces is the ability to capitalize and be able to grow, because capitalization costs are so extreme. And if you can't find a way to leverage and take advantage of low interest rates when they're coming in, then you're going to probably end up getting bought out, or something's going to happen. We watched this take place. Jerry talks about the cotton farms. This county used to be nothing but cotton farms a long, long time ago. And it's still readily apparent when I build houses, because where I'm building houses is generally old cotton fields. Just like Jerry says, it's all been terraced. It's grown up in pines now. People, oh, it's a beautiful forestry place. It's an old cotton field. It's all it's ever been. They let it grow up in pines because they didn't want to pay. There used to be a different tax structure. Tax policy changed some of this stuff that was going on. The other thing, the biggest threat to agriculture in Oconee County was the lakes. 30,000 acres of power production, lakes, farming gone. Gone. The barns are still on the bottom of the lake. So it's not, I sit here and read these reports and I walk away with the feeling it's kind of like development is really bad. That's the impression I get. We're going to do everything we can to try and stifle development. That's the impression I get from all these reports. And yet, it wasn't development that created this issue with, the threats to farmland, power production, let's look at Lake Jocassee, probably the best and greatest stand of virgin timber still in this state. It's still in the bottom of Lake Jocassee. It's magnificent timber. Some of that stuff is over 200 feet tall with a base diameter of about 5 feet. It's phenomenal. It's still there. But anyway, when we start looking at how we assess the information that we're going to use going forward, we need to make sure that we're looking at everything and not just kind of sectionalize it, because that lake transformed so much and it took away vast amounts of farmland. So it's not just housing production, it's not just development and industry and commercial that is the threat to farmland. It's so much more. And we need to be thinking about that, and it's not just isolated. Thank you.
All right, go into the land use element. Go ahead, Mike. Over, Mike.
First page, I need some English major to help me out. Paragraph says existing land use. Go down to the bottom, the second from the last sentence. An inventory of existing land use uses within the county was developed through a GIS analysis of digital mapping data, period. And I can't understand the next sentence. Maybe somebody else can. Looked like it. One of you wizards, help me out. Should it have been one big, long sentence, or what?
Something's missing.
You have a little trouble with it, Stacy?
Yes, I
Good,
do.
thank you. It's not just me then. Okay.
I think that what they were trying to say was, and I'm just guessing here, Mr. Chapman, what they did was they took land use as described when they are talking to the tax assessor's office, because there's a lot of land in Oconee County that gets an agricultural exemption that isn't necessarily farmland, and I'm sure there's other things like that. So they took that tax parcel information and then took what individual people knew about changes, et cetera, and simply took it and colored in the map based on what information was available, simply looking at a computer. I'm not saying it's worded properly, I'm just saying I think that's what they were trying to
Is there a
say.
better way of wording it?
I think it should say mapping of existing land use uses integrated land use category definitions. Does that make more sense?
There's a
I
word
think
that is missing.
there should
in
be
there.
a use,
Looks like
it should be land use uses integrated land use category. There's a lot of use in there.
Maybe,
But I think that's what they're missing.
how about if we just, Adam, do you think you could wordsmith that better
Sure.
at a later time,
I can do
rather
that.
than us sit up here and try to parse it out?
I'll just say
Is that, is that all right with everybody?
and there's the map. I will, yes, sir.
Okay. Your name Dora?
Sir?
Your name Dora now?
If I may, so there's two maps in the land use section. One is on the fourth page, or fifth page, sorry. This is the existing land use map. As Mr. Markovich pointed out, this is a tax map. This is what these properties paid for in the taxes last year. That's the third tax map. So, and we went through it, and there were some things that were like, wow, that's unique, why that's taxed as such, or that is what it is. But overwhelmingly, it's that light pale green, that's taxed agricultural land. So, that's just for reference. This is the existing land use map. to conflate the issue on page 8 is the future land use map. The two are related by the words land use map, but they're not, it's in the future. It's kind of how you see, if you were to take away the shapes and make a bubble map, it's kind of how you see the area growing. So if we had traditional zoning in this county, if this county was very zoned, this map would be somewhat following, in some regards, the existing land use map. So in some areas, it would, such as probably Greenville, City of Greenville, City of Charleston, some other areas, the future land use map and the existing land use map would look somewhat similar. You would be able to, in some areas, kind of overlay, or areas that have had zoning for a long time. This future land use map, this is our draft future land use map. This is our existing land use, existing future land use map. Just to add a step further of so this is what's in our current comprehensive plan. This is our existing future land use map. This is our draft future land use map that's on the screen before we go on page 8. Just to kind of put it all out there. Anybody have any questions, concerns?
Well, this map to me represents that everyone's gonna live at the lake in the future. We're not gonna have any residents anywhere else in the county, and everybody's gonna move around the lakes and around Hartwell Lake, around Lake Kiwi, and the rest of the county is just gonna be, national forest, and small portion's gonna be some agricultural, but everybody's gonna live on the lake in the future. I mean, that's the way it looks like, because there's no, in the future land use map, there's no residents anywhere except around the lakes. There's
So
none.
the definitions are on the next page.
There is suburban there, which would be housing in suburban areas.
What, so rural?
You got rural?
Yeah, you
Rural,
got rural, suburban, and suburban transitional, so you mean, there is houses there. But I just don't know about the small amount of green on here, do you, Gwen?
Parks and
I
recreation.
mean, it's just our area, and there's way more agriculture than just in South Oconee. I mean, that's where the primary part of it is, but there's, I mean, a good bit on up towards Mountain Rest and Long Creek and Westminster.
Yeah, they're not showing anything in Long Creek area, and there's a lot of them out there. Even in the future, there'll still be some up there.
So how did they come up with this map?
With this, I'm sorry, ma'am?
How did they come up with this future land use map?
We worked with them, we grabbed quite a bit of staff who've been in the area for a while and looked at what's there, what was there. So Long Creek, definitely has some larger farms up there. But looking at the rural definition, it's pretty heavily subdivided up there. There's a lot less, it's a lot less ag than housing up there. While there is plenty of ag up there,
Did y'all utilize the 10-acre by any chance rule as far as?
we were looking at, so properties taxed in the area, 5 acres or more, you can apply to have your property taxed to agriculture, which is why on the current land use map, so much of the county is, or existing land use map, so much of the county is that pale green color. It's because people see that if they have a large chunk of land, they can go ahead and have a taxed ag, which substantially reduces their taxation rate. Whether or not you or I or anyone would call it a farm is up for debate, but that is what that is.
But, just because they're not growing animals on it or growing soybeans or something else. I mean, there's a lot of people that cut hay, which is a farm product. There's, timber, that would be a product that is being grown. I don't know that we're taking those things into account in this map.
Well, I think the definition that they have for rural is pretty, I mean, it says it's sparsely populated but includes pockets of commercial uses and mixed-use development. So it's a little bit of everything, just maybe not so specific in what it is. It's a pretty broad definition, so.
I wonder if that's what they looked at. I know when we did the farmer's market, we had people who came to the market actually put a pin of where they were from. And, yeah, there was more in other places besides in the lower part. But again, I think the lower part, and please correct me, Mr. Chapman, the lower part is in larger tracts, and therefore it's easy to clump it together and say, this is agricultural use, as opposed to the smaller family farms that are all through the county, that as you drive along, you might not even know they're there because they're the backside or they're on an off-road. And I certainly hope that we will find a way to preserve that land, certainly. But you're right, I think that rural says new uses should not negatively impact existing land uses as long as it's, but again, we shouldn't hold somebody back if they have 3 acres of garden and want to set up a farm stand. We don't want to make it an agricultural preservation section that says they can't put their farm stand on their land. Am I going along the right track?
And your excellent point, I completely skipped over portions. The purpose of this map is to guide council during rezoning, also perhaps for when they do economic development projects. When there was a big push for zoning years ago, 5 years ago, they used this map, the existing future land use map up the wall, in theory. So this doesn't say that right now you couldn't plop down anything you want to in the control-free district. Basically, this entire map, I mean, 85%, 88% of the county is control-free district. So this isn't a zoning map. This doesn't say what you can or cannot do there tomorrow. What it says is kind of how you all see it growing. So if you were going to take a magic ball and see how it looks like it's growing, this, to us, looking at what's there today, what was there yesterday, and kind of the interest in the county, where it's growing. So the map, it could look like this. The functional aspect is that anywhere that's, if something's going to go for rezoning, council should look at this, reference this map.
See, that's what scares me, is what you said in the beginning, is that was their goal, is to make us look like that map right there when they're doing zoning.
Right.
And this should not be the only agriculture in this county, is this small piece of green down here.
So the zoning, when the zoning did occur, the zoning push did occur, that's where all the ag went. That's all the ag part. I think almost at least 90% of the ag parcels are down in this area. The Long Creek area, by and large, went traditional rural development. They kind of branded it rural up there. I think there are some splotches of zoned ag land up there, up throughout the county. But by and large, overwhelmingly, it's just in the southern part of the county. It's that people who chose to be zoned in that area.
And I think, again, it had more to do with the size of the tracts that they were looking at, because the people that had timberland that's large tracts, but they did not zone, they didn't zone, period, because they know it's mostly up for sale as like property. So that was not an interest to them. And I think the other thing might be that they looked at the soil maps and said, I don't know how much prime soil is left on the mountains, but my guess would be there's a larger concentration of it in the lower part of the county.
Well, I'm sure it had a lot to do with the amount of income that comes out of that part of the county is from agriculture. There's a huge amount of income in that part of the county that's agriculture, and maybe you don't have as much in the other. But I'm just worried about this map getting stuck in there, and this is our plan for the future. Is this telling our residents, we gonna push all the agriculture down to the southern part of the county, and y'all are gonna get that taken away? That's the thing that concerns me.
I would agree with Ms. Lyles on that as far as when you read the paragraph here. I'm sure it's like any other counties, but it talks about that this future land use, and it describes implementation of future land use map will be accomplished regulatory measures, including county zoning, enabling ordinance. To me, just like Ms. Lyles said, this map says, ooh, this is the direction we want to go. We're going to put you in a nice little box over here, and we're going to put you in a nice little box over here. And the fear is that this is a 10-year plan, and it looks so different from the existing land use plan. Y'all are talking about the south end with agriculture, but I'm looking up here at the yellow around the lake, and can assure you that this map, which looks like it's going a good 4 miles off of the lake, that those are not going to be subdivisions that would be residential. They're going to build up around the townships as far as subdivision growth before you're just taking wilderness and saying 4, 5, 6 miles off of the lake. When you're looking at this north end, when you're looking north of 130, when you're looking actually north of 183 there, some of that is subdivision, yes, but a lot of that is still rural farmland countryside up in that area. So it shocks me to think that someone's going to look at this map and go, oh, well, let's start putting in some zoning that if it's good for this neighborhood, it's good for the farmer next door.
If I may, so you, Planning Commission about 2 years ago changed it so 100% of the landowners have to agree to the zoning changes. So that would help them if they so wanted to zone into some sort of residential aspect of it. And we can completely change this map, but it is, how would we like to change it then?
It's just a guide.
Yeah, but
Yeah, how are you gonna
too
change
much.
it? How are you gonna change it?
I don't know, but too many times we put a guide in there and then that is implemented. And that's what worries me, is that we're gonna try to implement, when we're not the ones sitting up here, they're gonna grab this map and say, this is what they intended to do. This is where we're going.
Help us out and give us a suggestion where you think.
Well, I think it needs to look a lot closer to this map than to this map.
A lot
Yeah,
closer.
so this is a tax map, that's all this is. So out of the $159 million that Oconee County has in receipts for agriculture, $149 million of them come out of poultry houses. Well, unfortunately, we're very low on timber, but I think they're working on it. I definitely need to push for timber. I believe most of the poultry houses are located in the southern kind of third of the county, give or take. I don't think there are any more. And,
There's some in Westminster, there's a few up towards Long Creek, but the majority of them's down our way.
Right. We can certainly change this map, but if we're gonna change it, we kinda have to, this was our best stab in what we saw as going on. And as far as off-lake subdivisions, we're getting more of them. I mean, we have some meetings about some, there's definitely more subdivisions coming in, smaller scale 5 acre, 10 acre, 20 acre subdivisions coming in all over the county, especially in the area that services around Walhalla.
Well, yes, and Walhalla, I would see, I mean, when you look at the existing tax map, you can see the city of Walhalla, and you can see a yellow that ventures out from there, obviously being single-family residential there. And then out from that is green. You see the same thing up in the Salem area a little bit. You see the Salem area, and then you see a little bit of yellow that ventures out and then bleeds over into green and then turns to green. You don't see a lot of yellow up into that northern section of the lake on 130 at this point in time, and I know a lot of that up there is the cliffs, but on the other side of the cliffs is a lot of farmland.
I think they just took what's considered vacant land here and filled that in as residential.
And that vacant land is right now just a lot of old crescent timber.
It just hasn't been developed yet.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine it doing any kind of development. I mean, Crescent's selling off 100-acre tracts so a farmer can timber it. Not so that somebody can develop it. There's not a market in the middle of nowhere for development right now. It's just shocking that I think we're making suggestions that somebody might take as, oh, we hadn't implemented this yet.
That's what worries me.
Blurring the lines a little bit, I don't disagree in saying, what is the future going to look like? But these two maps are anywhere close over a 10-year plan, in my thought. Maybe more density of yellow, maybe less density of green around the cities. But gosh, we've turned the entire north or west side of the lake yellow for 7, 8, 9 miles off the water.
Would y'all like to have a small group of commissioners get together and come up with a different map?
Or maybe, are the titles of the sections, the future land use, are they set in stone, as in agriculture preservation and rural?
Outside of the existing land use map, nothing is set in stone, so we can change, definitely.
Because if you took agricultural/rural and made that, I don't know, brown and green striped, or muddy shade of green, or whatever you wanted to do with that, it would come much closer to looking like the current land use map without saying you can only have this, and then go in and shade. It does seem to me like all of a sudden you blanked out a lot of yellow that's all around the cities. And I know that if you just read rural suburban, that says that what's happening there is that it's going to sprawl out from the cities to take in the rural land. So it's going to become less rural and more urban as you go out around those cities. But again, a lot of people will look at the map rather than read and say, oh, okay, well, we're not supposed to build there. Let's focus around the lake where all the yellow is. If that's a concern, I'd certainly be willing to work with anybody that wanted to volunteer to look at rephrasing or recoloring this map.
One other thing just along that line is we look at the existing map, which is again complete, it's a tax identification map. And we see all these terms, and the first one being agriculture forest. And then we turn to the next one, and the terms are different. It talks about agriculture preservation, and that to me immediately says we're going to put you in a box, a zoned box, which may be fine, maybe not. But as we go through the different terms, and I'm not here to argue about the zoning one way or the other, but I am saying that the wording here and the less box and the fact that these colors don't match the first colors really, to me, leads itself in the direction of we're going to put you in a box. Rather than, what do we believe growth is going? I completely understand telling people this is the way we think growth is going. But the wording here almost sounds like we're going to tell you which way growth is going to go, not which way it's going.
Well, could you not, I understand what you're saying, but could you not say something like rural/agriculture or something like that?
That's what I mean, there's got to be a way to combine it so that you've got places where people have their homes, but they're also farming. Doesn't have, I mean, obviously the big tracts that are left are in the bottom, but there is a lot of farming all other places. And I think you can combine those terms somehow. Because rural, and I don't want to get stuck on names either because, there's probably going to come a time when there will be no more manufactured home parks in the county. So that's a box that maybe we don't need to have or won't use. But to lower it to this few, unless you're very specific, I don't know, I just need.
So if I may, so so it's not, this future land use map is meant to be a broad, like if we were to take away all of the shapes of this and turn this into like a bubble map, what percentage of the county do you think can grow into these ways, these future land use kind of definitions. And we came up with the definitions as well, so we can certainly adjust those. We can adjust the map if you all have a idea on how you want to adjust it, or it's going to be easier just to adjust the definitions. And the only reason why it's done parcel by parcel on a couple locations, for instance, Duke, the big purple ball on the right, and the parks were done, that was really more a matter of being able to geo-reference yourself on a map. That's because we didn't want to include all the tiny roads. That's why this parcel by parcel. We didn't want to do this parcel by parcel, because that's not really the intent of it. So if you were to have a blank map in front of you with no colors on it, let's just say besides Sumter being colored in, Sumter National Forest, how would you all see the county in 10 years? Because this map should look different, because this is looking, when this map expires, that map would be 20 years old. So in 10 years, it's definitely changed the county has.
If you ask me what it would look like, I would take this existing map, I would make the yellow brighter, and I would make it bleed into the green as a more bubbled look as opposed to an individualized parcel look.
And not have it so sectionalized that you have brown here, you have green here, you have orange here, you have yellow here. And nothing, because our county is not split like that. It's not in little pieces. And I don't see it becoming tiny little pieces.
As long as we can be assured of, my fear is this, we have more and more people who say, I want to raise a few chickens in my backyard so that I can have some eggs, but I'm in a subdivision that prohibits me from having any of those. And so they're now moving out of those HOAs, but still in a city environment where they can get to the grocery store quickly so that they can have 4 chickens in their backyard and raise eggs. I'm fearful that we as this department, we put down something that says residential, and all of a sudden residential becomes just like an HOA that those people moved out of, and now they're trapped because the county put in an ordinance of zoning that says you can or can't do something. And now all of a sudden, those people are forced out, they've been forced out of the subdivision, now they're being forced out of the neighborhood, and now they're being forced out of town in general, because we put down something that said, this is what we want the county to look like. And then somebody places a rule behind that look.
So I mean, the definition of the residential area here it includes pockets of agriculture.
Yeah, it's got the whole
rural,
thing.
commercial, and other land uses. I don't think any of these are specifically saying you can't do anything but this.
But the
And
two
you
things
did
in
a
the,
great job with the definitions.
two things that concern me though. That last sentence, they should not detract from the overall residential character and not impose negative secondary impacts on nearby properties. You got eggs, you got chickens, your neighbor's griping about them, that right there, they're out. And then in the agricultural part, it says uses should be limited to those that are compatible with ongoing agricultural activity. That right there just zoned that agriculture, and you cannot sell that property for anything but agriculture, is what that would read to someone who's moving in here.
Well, how would you revise it? Or how would you change the definitions?
I don't like putting limits on that property owner. If it's agricultural preservation, unless it is already zoned agricultural, then it does not need that,
Word preservation on that?
uses should be limited to those that are compatible with ongoing agricultural activity.
That's like
Can't limit the use if it's unincorporated or uncontrolled or whatever the word is we use. If it's not zoned.
Control-free.
Yeah, control-free. Then we don't need to be having these limited to.
So you're saying that basically says my property where I have it has to be something to do with poultry farming because I have chicken houses right beside my property, and that would coincide with what that area is being used as, so I'd have to use my property the same way. Is that what you're saying?
Say that one more time.
All right. My property, I have this property sitting here. My neighbor has chicken houses. And in my area, there's chicken houses. So you're saying this sentence states that I have to do the same type of stuff. That's what this sentence is saying.
Well, the way I read it, this green on this future land use map says agricultural preservation. I go and I look at the definition of agricultural preservation, and it says uses should be limited to those that are compatible with ongoing agricultural activity. If I was going to buy that property, if I'm looking at a piece of property in this area, and I'm not doing agriculture, that right there would tell me I can't be looking at that property because I'm not doing agriculture.
Didn't we just have a conversation about realtors giving notification that there's a farm next door? And I mean, I kind of feel like that's in the same line of, if you want to move next to a farm, I mean, that's the area that you're going to be in. If you're moving there and you don't want people around you farming, that's not the area you need to be in.
I'm not saying
I
that.
think it's just kind of it's saying you need to realize that there's going to be agriculture activity and can coexist with the secondary effects commonly associated with such activities.
This
I mean,
is more saying,
I don't know.
this is more saying that if you buy in this agricultural preservation area, that you got to do agriculture.
I don't think that's what it's saying. I think it's saying that next door you're going to have agriculture. I mean, I think we just did the conversation about
That's the
realtors
conversation
should
that
tell
we've
people
had,
that.
and that's something we've all agreed on, but that's not reflected by this language.
Is it the verbiage or the position of the map, of what's on the map? Is it the verbiage that's concerning you?
The verbiage concerns me, but I just don't feel like agriculture is represented well on this map. I think we have more agriculture in this county than just this tiny green spot down here. I just feel like it's not represented well.
And for solving that problem, for me, it would be simple to simply add, you have agricultural preservation, which is saying that you are trying to preserve an area for large-scale farming. Then, and you have rural suburban, but rural does not explain that you can also do agriculture there in its name. And so perhaps if you made it rural agricultural and rural suburban, that would open up that entire beige area to more agricultural uses, and explain that in those areas you may encounter farming, you may encounter roosters, you may encounter cows or slow tractors or whatever, those things that are affiliated with agriculture, and it includes a lot of the areas where I know there are small farms and small, and then you've got the rural suburban as you get closer to the cities that says, okay, we're transitioning now more to where we're going to have things that are more affiliated with the cities. You're going to see closer spaced houses. Perhaps you're going to see more trucking, more shopping, more, as opposed to the rural agricultural where you may be, 8 or 10 miles or 6 miles or whatever it is from a grocery store. As you get into the darker bays, you're getting closer and closer to a city, so you're going to deal with the things that you deal with in a city. And I know that's not a whole lot, but I think that would make it clear that there's still an awful lot of area on this map that you can practice agriculture on your land.
You also have to adjust residential, though, to also talk about how residential is everything from rural residential, which may include all these things. This residential definition does a great job of saying and protecting potentially against 400,000-foot industrial park coming in up in maybe the northern area or whatnot. But I don't think this definition does a good job at saying residential is a lot of things, not just compacted houses. It is agriculture, it is rural, and it does have some small commercial use.
Let me ask this, try to move things along here, not to steamroll anything, but you're a resident, you're kind of a developer, and, you're into property. Would it help if maybe Mike got in and maybe rewrote a couple of these paragraphs, and Gwen, maybe if she could get in and rewrite a couple of paragraphs and we bring it back and see if this is closer to what the council wants? Would you be all right, I mean, I'm just throwing an idea out.
I don't mind doing some editing on this.
How about you, Mike?
I don't mind doing some editing. I think I have more concern with somebody taking this map that is so black and white, or in this case, so structured and not bleeding or blending.
Well, what I don't mean to interrupt you, I'm sorry. What I'm thinking is maybe let's look at the definitions and see if we can't revise the definitions, and then we'll look at the map and see if we need to blend colors or change colors. I'm a little colorblind, so, you gotta be very positive with me with the colors. But,
I don't want us to get stuck, and I think that's a great suggestion. I'm for moving forward on doing something. I just want us to be real careful.
Can we add Stacy? Would you be willing to do the same, Stacy? We'll have three different views.
I have one more problem with the language where it has future land use on page 11.6. It says implementation of the future land use map will be accomplished through regulatory measures included in the county's zoning enabling ordinance and land development subdivision regulations. That to me says we're going to put policies in effect to make that land use map be reflective of where we want Oconee to be. In other words, we're going to push for Oconee to look like this map. And I don't like that.
Suggestion, we start with the future land use on page 11.6. And you three, if y'all would go through, all the way to 11.7. Well, anyway, do all the definitions. Mixed up on my phone. And bring them back to us and let us look at them. That way you can tweak what that paragraph says on down to each definition. Yes, sir, Mr. Adam.
If I may, so if y'all are gonna do that, that's great. The 16th of October, so next Wednesday, is when I'll need a published backup material. So not to give y'all a homework due date, but in order for me to make this part of, get it out there in the public and give everyone as much time as everyone else has to look at it, I would need to include backup material by the 16th of.
October 16th.
October 16th. 10, 12. Sometime during that day, that'd be great.
Is that okay, Ms. Stacy?
Yes.
Okay.
How important is it that we have the future land use in this?
Required by our ordinance board. That's the reason why they put it in there the first time, is because it's part of the requirements is having a future land.
Okay.
Okay, let's move on to the executive summary. No, wait a minute, we got it, well, let's go to page 11.12. And look at the goals, objectives, and strategies. And I will open the floor to whomever has changes, additions, or anything to fuss at Adam about.
Actually, I was going to say that I commend staff for what they've done here. I have not scored it for grammar yet. I'm sorry. But I think that you did a really good job of addressing a lot of questions and problems that we've had in the county. Being open-minded but yet still given opportunities to preserve and protect areas.
Well, let me stir the pot a little bit. Over here on page 1113, you've got an objective of 11.1.3, protect agriculture land, et cetera, et cetera. And they talk about utilizing the zoning process to accommodate the appropriate development as needed. I'm wondering why conservation easement or overlay wasn't added in there.
Sorry, what strategy or what was on?
I'm sorry, I'm on page 11-13 at the top, and it's strategy. I love this numbering system. 11.1.3.1.
Because conservation easements, those are done privately. I believe the only tool the county has would be zoning, other than, encouraging certainly like the land bank, et cetera, to encourage easements. But I think the only tool the county has to protect agricultural land would be zoning.
It's the next one, it's 11.1.3.2.
But number one, it's not the county's, it's supposed to be up to the people that own the land, whether they want it zoned anything at all. And that's basically, to me, that statement saying the council will just go ahead and zone what they want, regardless what the people want. And that's not how our zoning, supposedly how our zoning rules are. The people have to bring a zoning request, not unless council decides to do top-down zoning and do what they want to, and the people don't have to say so. I don't like the wording of that at all.
Which one you don't like? 11.1.3.2?
3.1, the very top of the page, right under the objective or strategy. To me, that's saying the council can do what they want to, which they can. There's not a whole lot we can do except vote them out. But this is something that the council's going to start using zoning, which they have and got in trouble about, to accommodate appropriate development as needed. So I thought it was up to the people to be zoned as what they see fit, not as what the government sees fit.
Could we change the word needed to requested? Because if they're requesting to be rezoned, then that's going about it in the correct way.
Right. That was my part of the.
Sure, I mean, we can certainly put that in here. Our zoning ordinance has, the council has the ability to,
Top-down zone.
well, there's, for instance, our industrial parks.
That's still top-down zoning.
What?
When the government
Well-
zones without the people's request or want, it's top-down zoning.
Should the column header, goals, objectives, strategies, accountable agencies, and time frame, should it not be right under the blue box?
Yeah, when I
Okay,
blew it
this-
up for 4, I'll justify it.
I'm cool. So, but that puts 11.1.3.1 as requested, right above the one that says implement as feasible the incorporation of voluntary mechanisms, which means that you're giving neighborhoods, et cetera, the opportunity. If they want to become a voluntary agricultural district and put up signs saying you're going to, then you're giving them that opportunity. And those two things need to go together, because you'll zone them if they're requested, but you also encourage them or give them the opportunity to use other methods to preserve their land and protect their neighborhoods.
We have to make a motion to,
Yeah.
to change the word needed to requested.
I'll second it if you do.
I'll make a motion then that, in strategy 11.1.3.1, the word needed be changed to requested.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
Word change,
Thank you.
Stacy.
Thank you.
And when, what was you saying that you think they need to be combined?
No, he's going to take care of it. It was just an error in the transition from the form.
Take that out.
He's good.
Okay. Well, there's another one that we can look at, and y'all tell me something. A strategy 11.1.4.3, it says prohibit development inconsistent with the scenic character of Highway 11 through the incorporation of a corridor overlay, condition use provision, and other mechanisms, and explore ways to preserve and maintain tree lines and scenic vistas along Highway 11. Does the state, since this is a state or federal, I guess, scenic highway, do they not already regulate that? Why are we even have that in here? There's nothing we can do that the state is probably already done. far as rules and regulations of what you can and cannot do on Highway 11, such as billboards or things like that.
So billboards is really, I mean, they regulate within their right of way, and they also regulate the billboards along the right of way. But, no, it's come up enough times where, like this one's in the blue, this is something that we added in here. I heard Highway 11 mentioned a lot of times in our public outreach meetings about doing something along Highway 11. That's why it's in there. So, yeah, I mean, we could.
I would like to make a motion to change the word prohibit to maybe encourage or something to that effect. Prohibit me, it just seems like something that we're saying, well, you're gonna do what we say and that's it.
That's exactly what it is. If you
So-
prohibit it, you mean it's not allowed.
So.
And the county put an industrial park on Highway 11, but we're gonna tell everybody else that you can't do it on your property.
Right.
That's a
Keep going,
problem.
keep going. Can we change it to, what would be a appropriate word? Maybe,
You would have to change 2 words if you do that, which would mean you would have to say promote development that is consistent with the scenic character of South
I
Carolina.
actually like that.
Yeah,
That
I like
sounds
that.
much better.
okay. Is that your motion?
Yes, sir.
I'll second that. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, guys.
Good job, team.
You got one, Mikey? All right.
Down to the objective 11.1.5, I'm wondering about adding a strategy to deal with short-term rentals. I'm suggesting that we develop or revise an ordinance to manage or address short-term rentals.
You talking about like Airbnbs?
Yeah.
Absolutely not.
No, that's an opportunity for somebody to utilize their property when they're not as a source of income.
So you're wanting to tell somebody that buys whatever house that they can't do what they want to with their own property that they bought, pay taxes for, and worked hard to get the money? You're gonna say, well, you can't do this because we're prohibiting it.
I didn't say we're prohibiting it. What I'm saying is, let's say that person lives in Portland, Oregon, and goes around and buys 2 or 3 houses around and starts short-term rentals. And he doesn't maintain the house, and he lets it go downhill. And the next thing you know, you've got the sororities and the fraternities coming in there for a weekend, and I live 2 doors down from them, and my property value starts to decrease.
Number one, we have building codes and inspectors and all, that if he's letting his property, his house, go to shambles, then they can address that. We pay our police officers to patrol areas where we have these, lack of a better word, drunken college kids, sororities or whatever. They get out here and cause all this trouble. That's why we pay police officers. But I don't see, whether he lives in the county or not, he still paid for that. He pays the tax on that, which is higher than everybody else pays. Because he don't live here, he's paying 10% or 6%.
6%.
Everybody else is paying 4%. But it's not right for any government to tell a homeowner that, well, you can't rent that. What if he rented it to his son for a weekend? And yeah, his son gets out here and starts disturbing, you call the cops, and the cops comes and deals with it.
Well, and along that line, I mean, you could have a neighbor who lets their grass grow and puts trash out in the front yard, just the same as you could have a tenant do something like that. So to take one grouping and say, oh, no, short-term has nothing to do with any of these others that could do the exact same thing.
I think the place that needs to be done is HOAs. We don't
Absolutely.
utilize our HOAs for the proper thing. We try to take it county-wide instead of just your neighborhood. There's so many places in this county that don't want all the rules. If you want a lot of rules, live in an HOA, and they will give you all the rules you want. But the rest of the county don't want them.
Yeah.
So that would be the place to take that, is to the HOAs. If you're, the majority of the people in your neighborhood do not want short-term rentals, then take it to your HOA and let them put regulations in there.
So this was a great idea I came up with, is that?
Well, I'm glad you brought it up, and it should never come up in front of this council.
Well, I thought I would just go ahead and bring it up.
And that's your right. You have the right, just like we have the right to refute you. You have the right to bring it up.
It's all right. We're still working at it.
Okay, anything further? Do we have anything, any corrections or changes on page 1114?
I'm afraid to suggest anything.
Oh, you're
Go
doing
right
so
ahead.
good until then.
Go ahead.
Doing good so far.
Short-term rentals there.
It's good that we have a diverse group of people here that live. Some live in subdivisions, some don't. We live on farms. That's what you need because it represents the county. Instead of just representing one segment of the county, the whole county is represented because we have such a diverse group here, in my opinion.
Okay, if there's nothing further on this element, let's go in to the executive summary where we can really get a hold of Mike.
Can we take a break before we do? Does anybody want to take a break?
I could use a
Because it's
break.
going to take me about 2.5 hours to go through the executive summary.
I move that Mike's not
All
allowed
right,
to speak.
let's take, how much time? 10?
2 minutes, 4 minutes?
5 minutes tops, we're good.
Let's take a 5-minute break here. So do we need a,
Motion and second for
I
a
need a-
break. Also, please know that the microphones will still be recording, everything's still on.
so I need a motion for a break?
I'll make a motion.
I need a second.
Take a 5-minute break.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. I need a motion to reconvene.
So move.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Uh,
Now, let's go into the executive summary. Mike, you have about 30 seconds.
Well, I wanted to start out by saying, first of all, that the last night I counted up, and right now to date, we have 302 pages in the comprehensive plan. That's just text. Strategies, we have 281. We have almost caught up with the number of pages that we have. So we've really got a lot of the strategies in a lot of pages. First of all, we have a committee to work on the executive summary. And Gwen, I want to thank you for helping us so much and putting a lot of good effort into it. Adam was the other member, and Adam, of course, did a spectacular job. And when we got down to it, Vivian was involved and Bill. The goal of the executive summary was to provide a concise summary of the objectives and strategies developed from comments that received the most attention from the residents. It's designed to provide information in an easily retrievable format and validate how the information was gathered, as well as other information of significance to the user. Now, if you'll flip over to the executive summary, as from what I understand, we are going to put this in the newspaper as a supplement. There'll be some graphics put in with it, just like the newspaper did with the other supplements. And then they are going to produce just a handful of 8.5 by 11 executive summaries with some graphics in it for the quote-unquote executives in the county. So there'll be 2 handouts, or the executive summary will have 2. There are some very minor grammatical errors in it right now that I'm going to ask Adam to do when we get to the end of it. But the first, page 3 has a message to the residents of the Oconee County. It has a couple of grammatical errors in it that we're going to correct. I'm not going to read it to you, but it kind of starts off what the executive summary is. When you turn the page over, we talk about goals, objectives, future land use map, what apparently is up for controversy now, and the implementation plan. Implementation plan is very key. How are we going to implement these strategies? It is a very key part of it. Page 5 has a call to action, and that has a couple of 2 very small minor errors in it that are going to be corrected. Challenges to overcome, assets to build on. Turn the page over. How are we going to measure progress? A brief paragraph of that. And then my favorite one, how can citizens become involved? And I think that that's very needed. Turn the page over to page 8. Who we heard from. And that really puts out in numerical terms all of the effort that Adam went to and his staff went to try to reach out and get input from the public. We really did a magnificent job with that. I think that there's no more effort could have been done to try to get the citizens involved. And then page 9 is what we heard. And the little paragraph in front of it says the comments that received the most attention are listed and grouped under the general topic. These were based on citizen input and are not intended to be in a ranked order. But nevertheless, there you have what we heard. Turn the page over and it continues on. Quality development, etc. Another favorite paragraph is on page 11, consequences for inaction. Here we are, another study put on the shelf. Turn the page over, the implementation plan on page 12. Now, I spent some time with Amanda to go through this with her, and this is her really this is her implementation plan. And she has been through it a couple of times, and this is a way that they're going to, that she's going to go through some of these, implementing some of these strategies. Now, the last 3 pages are titled What We Heard, and it lists the actual 10 elements or chapters, and we have the top 4 strategies in under each one of these elements. Now, what you're going to ask is, gee, how did you come up with that? I'm glad you asked that question. If you'll turn back, part of your handout had community outreach, and it had pictures of all of the yellow Post-it notes that Adam put on the wall back there in his office. And if you look closely under each one of them, you will see a strategy numbers. And that is one way that we got it. And then, if you will turn further over, additional newspaper comments. 31 pages of the newspaper comments were all coded. Went through all of those and put a strategy with them. And then at the end of all of that, what we did was, we took all of those strategies and we merged those 2 lists together with the input that we got from emails, and we came out with a list. And all I can do is hold it up here and say, such and such got 64 comments, such and such got 40 comments, and 38, et cetera, et cetera. Then we took that and we put that, divided it up, the ones that dealt with population. Then we went with the top 3 or 4 of those that dealt with population, and we listed it there. And then as you turn the page, we went through the rest of the elements and we listed it accordingly. The strategies are there, the numbers, and a very brief summary. We didn't take the whole strategy because some of them just rambled on forever and ever. And we just kind of made a brief synopsis of that strategy. So it wasn't just random that we came up with these strategies. It was all data-driven, and we've got all that data to back up what we came up with. Hopefully, we have achieved what we set out to do, was to provide a concise summary and in a retrievable format, and it will validate some of the information we have here, and it says what the citizens were talking about, what they were interested in for the future. When I was looking, there is no exact format to do for an executive summary. And when I went through and started looking at the other counties in South Carolina, what they had done, the ones that had executive summaries were just a paragraph under each element. I think what we've got here is really something that you can, that the managers in the county can really put their teeth into when they get into trying to implement some of these strategies. They will have data that will back up what we have here. Gwen, you got anything you want to add?
Ms. Gwen?
All I can say is that my deepest thanks to Mr. Smith. I hope that everybody takes just a second to look at how much information he went over in detail after detail and coordinated and correlated it and researched it and then did it all again to make sure that he was putting this into as accurate and complete a coverage of what the people of Oconee County said they wanted. It's amazing. And the few grammatical corrections that I found were minor.
Well,
minor.
They needed to be found.
It's a tremendous amount of work, and we all owe him a debt of gratitude because we would have been here for weeks at a time trying to do this as a group.
Yes, thank you. It looks great, and thanks to both of you all and anybody else that participated, but wow, this was.
Adam down there.
This really looks good. Do I understand correct that these numbers coincide with the numbers that we have been going over found in one of those
Yes,
elements?
yes,
So it's
absolutely.
a glossary of sorts.
Yeah,
That's
I
wonderful.
didn't just dream up these numbers.
That's wonderful.
And you can see where some of them, just under population, you can see where some of them were combined, because the top one was, what do we do in this county? That's the one that got the most votes. You know, what are we gonna do other than hike or boat? And that's right there in population. I guess everybody wants Disney to come down here and drop a Disney park in here. But anyway, there you have it, folks.
Thank you all very much for putting this together.
Let me, Stacy, you got any comments?
Well, you know I do. Just the future land use map bothers me because it says shall be referenced in making managed growth and capital investment decisions. So there again, if we're only going to encourage agriculture just in that lower part of the state, lower part of the county, and nowhere else in the county, I just don't like that it says this map has to be referenced before any decisions are made. That's the
Well,
only thing I don't like.
what I wanted to do was to make a motion to accept this with the minor grammatical changes. Are you saying that you want to revise that paragraph?
Somehow, yes. And it's hard to do that without me seeing what that land use map is going to look like that we're actually going to put in the plan. If I saw that map, it might be easier to leave this, but that's kind of hard.
If I may. So the future land, by the state ordinance, the future land use map shall be referenced when zoning. Like it is, so while it doesn't say that, I guess that pointing on the nose,
But see, that's, what you just said is my problem.
Right.
We're not supposed to be pushing zoning in this county, but we're supposed to be looking at a land use map, and you just said that it's got to be referenced for zoning.
Well, I mean, that's what you're supposed to, but because so much of the county is control-free district, and because the planning commission sent up to council, was probably 2 years ago now, changing it like 100% of the property ownership, property owners have to be involved in zoning decisions.
Unless the
Now-
county council decides to do it on their own, right?
That's, there's a multitude of ways the council could choose to zone if they so chose. And of course, anything could change. Everything's written in pencil here. Basically, everything that we have written is basically written in pencil. So we could yes, this could change tomorrow. Elections happen, these seats change, and something else gets completely written. That's completely possible, yes, ma'am.
Well, I think we need, if we're going to put this in here, quit beating around the bush and say, this is for zoning purposes. Be blunt with the people and tell them what it's there for.
We also say it's for capital investment as well. That was just kind of added in for OEA's sake, I believe.
Why are the asterisks under the land use? Because we're going over it
It's
today.
because, yeah, we were going over it today.
And I understand we've still got a few changes that we're discussing in the land use.
Well, we had already got the data from the land use.
Right, so this, outside of that last one, which we are still talking about, have we pretty much nailed down on these others that we're good with where things are?
Yes, yes. We are you talking specifically about,
As far as these match up with things that
Strategies?
we've already approved as
Yes.
far as strategies?
yes,
I'd like to make a motion then that this executive summary looks great and that barring the last land use, which still potentially may be revised, that we accept this as going into the comprehensive plan.
I would second that motion.
I'll third it.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Do we have any further discussion?
I do, real
So
quick.
go ahead.
I was at the consequences of inaction.
Just a minute.
Is this the order that it should be in? I kind of feel like that should be at the end,
Oh.
because it's a really positive document, and then it's kind of this is what happens if we don't do it. It kind of feel like it's out of place if this is the order that it is meant to be in.
a lot of these pages, or some of these paragraphs are very short, and they'll be combined on one page, and there'll be graphics in here. I kind of think that the consequences for inaction, while it is negative, it needs to be put in there kind of up front, because people will look at this and they'll say, well, they might not do it, they might do it, and this kind of hits them right between the eyes. I kind of wanted to, and I'm open to suggestions, and Josh knows I've been shot up tonight pretty badly.
Well, I kind of feel like after the how to implement the plan, it might seem like it feels better there.
Put it-
Because you talk about how we implement it, what do we do if we don't implement it?
Okay, all right.
I mean,
I see where you're coming from.
It's
All
up
right.
to you.
How about if we put it, do you think you should put it before what we heard and after the implementation plan? Or do you think it should go after what we heard? In other words, the very last page.
It should be the very last page.
The very
I like
last
the
page.
what we heard
I kinda like
continue being right behind the what we heard.
Yeah.
I think that was a formatting error on my part, I apologize.
I think
So-
page 13 should be changed to 11.
Wait a minute, let me get my glasses on. 13 should be 11?
14 should be 12. 15 should be 13.
Then how to implement the plan and then the consequences for inaction.
Yeah.
Hey, that sounds good.
So 12 to
To
15
15, yep, and
and
consequences.
11 to 16.
Perfect.
Looks good.
I make that motion.
That's a lot of
Okay.
motions going
Oh,
on.
we already got a motion on the table, don't we?
We gotta.
You need to amend the motion.
We,
Mike's.
I want to amend the motion to reference the reordering that Ms. Lyles just initiated.
And I will second that amended motion.
Okay, we have
You're gonna come up.
amended motion and amended second. Do we have any further discussion?
Not for me.
Okay, let's.
We're still going to possibly change the land use if we have to, right?
Yes.
That's all. Okay, I'm good.
So, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye,
Opposed?
Jesus.
Good job.
Really good job on the executive session.
All right, item D, under comprehensive plan, South Carolina Right to Farm Act. We had a short discussion, or mentioned it in one of our other meetings, maybe. Mr. Adam, you need something, to say something?
I do apologize, you were talking, I was going through this, the appendix here, if I may back this up to see just for a moment here. The appendix is 70-odd pages long. That is all the maps and graphs and surveys and things of that nature, including all these beautiful pictures of sticky notes, and my handwriting. Do you all wish to include those in the comprehensive plan?
No.
I don't think so.
Let me,
Okay, Mike.
let me offer something here. These two sections validate how we came up with the strategies in the executive plan. They validate it. They show how we did everything. And they really, I mean, we're up to 300 pages. What's another so many pages at that point? Somebody's going to ask the question, well, how'd you guys come up with such and such underneath, housing or whatever?
Come to the meeting.
I think it's a lot of
Check the
paperwork to
YouTube video.
include.
I can certainly put it on the web, I plan to put it on the website anyhow.
I think it'd be cool to be on the website and be out there as a promotional piece, but I don't know that it needs to be in a legalized looking document.
How many of these do you have to print? I mean,
How many do I have to print? So I have to print you all 7 of them, me 1, the House 1, 5 for council, probably a couple for administration. I'm sure someone will FOIA it, so,
20.
I mean,
so we're talking a lot of paper.
oh, yeah, no, yes, we're on quite a bit of paper, we're on quite a bit of paper. Now, I did asked the consultants, and they said, generally speaking, this hasn't historically, to their knowledge, been in the backup material, but you can find these in backup material for the official plan. When we set it up to council, if you all want to include this as well, it's completely up to y'all what you want to do. But I figure I'd leave it up to y'all to.
I think it'd be cool as a supplement to council so they know that what the work that was done on it. But I don't know that it needs to be in the book. But
I tell you what other people have done is made this almost a separate document. They have made this a separate document, like the executive summary is separate.
And I think that's good. I used to sponsor cheerleaders when I was a teacher, and invariably, every single year, we actually had to put the judges' ballots in a vault in the office, because there was always going to be that one parent who didn't believe when we announced their darling did not make it, that we had to prove that. And I think it's wonderful to be able to prove it and to have a separate document that backs up what we've done. And I think it should be saved in record for that very reason. So I think a separate document would be wonderful, and it be filed as a permanent part of this action. But I don't know that anybody besides council needs to see it. That would be my feeling.
Or just have it available, like if they
Yeah.
wanted to come and view it
If
or
you wanna
whatever,
come,
but not
mhm.
published with the document.
Okay, well, I'll make a motion and it'd be a separate document that we can access.
Can you put quote unquote for record, sort of like?
Sure, I mean, you can certainly vote on that. I mean, it will be, yeah, you can go ahead and give me that directive, that's fine, yes.
Can we just make it available online?
It will be, yes, sir. That was kind of my overall scheme of seeing on the website, was to have the whole document and then break it down by elements, executive summary, and sometimes it's available on the website. But as far as being official part of our codified comprehensive plan, you all seem to not want that, and that's fine. That was just my question.
So are we saying that we want to put it online only, or do we want to put it as a separate document? Or what are we saying now?
Well, if you all don't want to include it as part of the comprehensive plan, that's fine. You all don't have to say anything else. I'll still include it. I'll still give it to y'all. Staff's big issue is that everybody who was involved in the creation of the comprehensive plan 2010 isn't here. We had to start from kind of scratch out and see, hey, do you remember what someone did? You know, asking Mr. Markovich, like, hey, Mr. Markovich, do you remember what they, kind of thing? So I just want to make sure that we plop this somewhere that, hey, how did they get all that information 10 years ago? Adam's living in Tahiti now. How was this done? And that's the institutional knowledge. Putting the website's great. I'll probably print out a couple copies here, hither and thither, and just keep it around somewhere. That's really my background for me asking this question.
But do you want us to make a motion that you do whatever you do before you go to Tahiti?
You can certainly do that. That's fine. Make a motion to make sure that this is readily available to the public in some format.
Well, I'll make a motion that we do whatever Adam said about retaining this before he goes to Tahiti.
I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Now, let's go to item
Let's go to
D, and the South Carolina Right to Farm Act. The table is open for
So
discussion.
this got put on there, why? Because it needs to be talked about in the land use element, or it needs to be, we talked about it a little bit at the last meeting. I don't know that we got it put into the agriculture element.
I think there was some suggestion that it be included in our comprehensive plan. I don't know how many pages the South Carolina Right to Farm Act is in legislative.
Not that big.
I personally feel like most everybody knows. I know that South Carolina is a right to farm state. I would certainly hope that they do. I don't know. I don't know that it needs to be included as a copy in our comprehensive plan. But I would not object to it if it was, so.
I like the idea. I just don't know where, do we put it in the agricultural element? Do we put it in the land use element?
Just put it right under the Bill of Rights.
Or right under the Bill of Rights?
About the Bill of Rights.
Yeah. I mean, I just like it in there because I think there are a lot of people that do not realize the laws in the state because they don't research them. And yes, that's their fault that they're not informed, but the more information that we can give them, I think the better.
I would agree, and when you look at the graph that shows that our county is made up super majority of agriculture,
And
that to put it in there under or near the Bill of Rights and to reference why we're putting it in there is a good thing.
And there's so many people in this county that are oblivious to the farming in this county because they don't come down to the southern part of the county, or they don't go out into the rural parts of the county. They stay in their neighborhoods, or they venture down to Seneca and then to Clemson, but they don't expand out into the larger parts of the county, so that they're not aware of what the other people in the county, how they live.
So we need a motion.
I'll make that motion, that it be placed in the comprehensive plan along with the Bill of Rights, because that is foundational information.
I second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. And, do we have any unfinished business? Adam?
No, sir.
Good. Have any new business?
Dinner time.
Mr. Adam?
U.S. Census. The U.S. Census will start, the decennial, every 10-year census will start occurring. Coney County is currently in the early phases of trying an awareness campaign. The census is asking us to, the U.S. Census Bureau is asking us to help and push it and raise our response rate numbers. There's hundreds of millions of dollars, I believe $600 million of federal grant money and other monies that are based on census numbers, in part or by and large. So we're beginning that process. We just met last week with the Census Bureau, and there'll be more information to come, and things like that. So I just want to kind of put that on your radar, that we're gonna start pushing the census, and April 1st is US Census Day, and that's no joke. So, there you go.
They're already out there because they've already came by our house to verify our address.
Right, the addressing.
So they're already out there.
Lisa with our address, 911 addressing, has been working with them for months, verifying addressing. It's laborious work.
Okay, if there's not any more new business, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
Let's stay here.
I'll make the motion.
All those in favor say aye.
You didn't get a second.
I did.
Oh.
Thank you.